In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an animated subscribe button inside of Adobe After Effects and export that with a transparent background so you can use it in any of your future projects. So let's get into it. So once you're inside of Adobe After Effects and you have a brand new composition created, we're first just going to begin by creating some text. So we'll go up onto the T icon, that is the horizontal type tool, we'll select that and select anywhere on the composition. Now we'll just type out subscribe, select all of that, and then we'll go over to the character window. So the character window should be on the right. If it's not, go to the window and select character. So from here, we can just change the fill color. We can change the stroke color if we like, or we can just get rid of that by pressing no fill color. We can change the font, we can change the weight of this, change the scale, and then we can adjust all of these other settings. But once you're happy with the look of that, we'll just drag this into the center using the proportional grid. Now, as you can see, in my example, you can see there is this circle here. This is the anchor point, and the anchor point is where the animation animates from. So essentially, if I was to rotate this text at the moment, it's rotating around that one specific anchor point. Same thing with the scale. If I'd scale down, it's going to scale down from that anchor point. So in order to carry on, we're first just going to change the anchor point so that we can get the correct animation. So we'll select A on the keyboard to load anchor point. And then we're just going to move this anchor point into the very center using these guides here. That's in the center. And now we'll just change the position of the anchor point until the text now sits back in the middle. There we go. Now if I press R on the keyboard for rotation, if I rotate that, that's now going to rotate from the middle rather than the corner. It looks a lot better, I feel. So with that being said, we're now going to move on to the bar. So we'll go layer, new, solid. We'll go color. You can select a solid color here. Press OK and drag this underneath the text. Or if you don't want a solid color, you can go into the effects window, which should be down here, effects and presets. We're going to search for ramp. That is gradient ramp. We'll drop that onto the red solid. And then inside of gradient ramp, we've got start color and end color. So we can select the start color, select a red, press OK. Then we'll go to the end color. We'll select a slightly darker shade of red. And as you can see, that looks a lot nicer with the gradient ramp versus the solid red. I feel like the solid red is a bit too in your face, whereas the gradient ramp just makes that box look a little bit more professional. So from here, I'm going to draw a box and I'm going to use this path here to help me trace out that box and make sure it's nice and even. So we'll go up to the top, we'll go rectangle tool. If for some reason it's a circle, just long press that and drag down to find the rectangle tool. Then as I say, we'll just use this as a reference, make sure the red solid is selected. And then we'll just draw out this box like so. Then we'll turn off the proportional grid. And as you can see, we've got this really cool subscribe button. If you wanted to take this even further and make the text pop out from that background, you can add a drop shadow effect. So we'll go into effects and presets, search for drop shadow, drop that onto the text, and then you can just increase the opacity, increase the distance, and then you can add some softness if you wanted that fade effect. So there you go, that now looks really awesome. Of course, from here, we're just going to pre-comp that so it's in its own layer. So we'll select those two layers. We'll right click, go pre-compose, and we'll change this to subscribe. So as you can see, those two layers have turned into one, and this means we can adjust the scale and both layers are going to be affected on their own. But we want to animate the text and the button on separately to begin with. So we're going to go into that pre-comp by double clicking, and then as you can see, we've got our two layers back again. And as I said, I want to animate these on at separate times. So we'll start with the bar. So we'll move a few frames over to the right. We'll press M on the keyboard to load mask. And we'll create a new keyframe on mask path. We'll move a few frames over to the left. And we'll change these 2 points on the right. We'll move these over to the right. And then we'll go back to the beginning and we'll drag these 2 points all the way over to the left. So if we play this back, you can see we get this bouncing effect. At the moment though, that bounce is a little bit too quick though, so I'm just going to elongate that by increasing this distance between the second and the third keyframes. So that looks really nice. And then that's going to hold for a bit. After a few seconds, it should wipe out. So we'll create a new keyframe on the mask path. We'll go to the very end. And we'll move these 2 positions, these 2 points on the right over to the left again. Or alternatively, if you wanted to do a different option, you could go the 2 left points over to the right. So animate in from the left and animate out to the right. As you can see, it holds and then disappears over to the right. That looks really cool. And now we can move on to animating the subscribe text. Now there's many different ways of animating this text. You can add a bounce in, you could add a rotation reveal, you could add a slide in. There's so many different text effects that you can choose. But for this sake, I'm just going to do a basic animate up. So we'll go onto the position. So we'll go a few seconds in, roughly around here, press P on the keyboard to load position, create a brand new keyframe on your position, then we'll move over to the left a few frames, and we'll drag the position down like so. So at the moment that's just going to slide in, but of course there's no character there, we want there to be a bounce. So we'll go past that second keyframe, create a brand new keyframe on the position, move to the second keyframe, and we'll move the position up just a little bit. And then we'll move the second keyframe closer to the first. There you go. Although the problem is that was a bit too slow, so I'm going to decrease the gap there. There you go. Now, just before this box disappears, we're just going to animate the text out. So we'll create a brand new keyframe on position, move a few frames over to the right, and we'll pull the position up. Now that looks great, but the problem is you can see the subscribe text waiting to pop up and you can see it at the end. So this is where we're going to use some masking to get rid of that. So we'll go over to that keyframe here. When it settles, we'll go to the rectangle mask again and we'll just draw a rectangle mask around the button. So as you can see, the position is changing over time, which means as the position changes, the mask is also moving with that text. So on this point here, when it rests, you just want to create a brand new keyframe selecting the mask path. Then you want to move back in time to that second keyframe and we'll move that mask down so that it now fits back around the box. Then we'll go to that first keyframe and we'll do the same thing again. We'll make sure it sits around the box like so. So when we play this back, you can see it appears from the bottom of the box. And then we'll do the same thing again over here. We'll create a brand new keyframe on this keyframe here on the start of the out. Then we'll go to that last keyframe, and we'll drag the mask down. So when we play this back, you can see box slides in, bottom slides in, and then it all slides out again. Of course, though, we haven't animated the keyframe interpolation yet. Now that sounds really complicated, but it's basically just a fancy way of adding some acceleration and deacceleration in and out of these keyframes. So rather than suddenly starting and stopping, it slowly eases in and then out of every keyframe. It looks much more natural and it makes the animation look far more professional. So we'll just select all of those keyframes that we just created on the text, right click on one of them, keyframe assistant, and select easy ease. And then whilst we're there, we may as well just do that to the box as well. So select all of those keyframes, right click on one, keyframe assistant, easy ease. And we'll play this back. That looks a lot better already. Now there's just one more thing that we need to do, and that is to add some motion blur. So we'll just select everything. So select those 2 layers and turn on the motion blur icon. If you can't see the motion blur icon, then you want to go to toggle switches / modes to reveal this setting. So we'll turn that on. And we'll make sure the motion blur is blue here. Now we'll play this back. It might take a second longer to render because of the motion blur, but when we play this back, that is a lot better and a lot nicer. So now we can close down the subscribe pre-comp, go back to our main composition, and because this is in its own pre-composition, we can pull the scale down, turn on the proportional grid to help us scale this up. We'll move the position down to the bottom. As you can see, everything is now being affected because it is in its own pre-composition. And as you can see, if I toggle the transparency grid, you can see this is on a transparent background. There's no background there, which means when we export this with the alpha channel, we can drop this onto any video of our choice. So to do that, we'll go to composition, add to render queue. That's going to load up this render queue setting here. We'll go to render settings, best settings. Make sure everything here is best, full, read only. Everything else here is fine. We'll press OK. Output module is lossless. We'll select that. Format, QuickTime. Post-render action, none. Channels, RGB. This is the most important setting, so make sure you're paying attention to this bit particularly. Make sure you select RGB and alpha. That's going to export the alpha channel. Depth is millions of colors plus. Pre-multiplied matted. Press OK. and then your output to is just the destination of this specific file. So we'll throw this on the desktop for fun, save that there, press render. That's just going to take a few seconds to export. And then all you have to do is just drop that into your project inside of Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut, iMovie. You can literally use this anywhere and it will work and sit on top of your video as a saved preset. And there you go. That is how you make an animated subscribe button and export that with an alpha channel right inside of Adobe After Effects. So thank you ever so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your support, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. See you there.